People come from all walks of life. They all have lives they lead. Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Hi, everyone. Sometimes when I invite a guest to be on the show and they agree, I ask them to send me a bio. Some of those bios are really impressive, like today's guest, for instance. But I'm just going to start at the bottom, so to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, time to get to know a little bit more about Ken King. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nancy. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure, for sure. So as I said, I was starting from the bottom. What I meant was like where you were born. So you were born in Saskatoon, correct?
Correct.
And yet you grew up mainly in the Fraser Valley?
Yeah, we moved out when I was 6 years old, and we actually arrived by train. Nowadays, you can't get there by train, but we came out by train, and there was still a station in Chilliwack. And I remember being greeted by all my cousins at the train station there.
That was my nice event.
It was kind of a bit scary. We'd only known being on the prairies, and there was my mom and my grandparents, my grandmother actually, and then my three other brothers and sisters, right? So
where are you in the lineup of children?
Oh, I'm number one.
Oh, you're the oldest one. So they always expect more of the oldest one, I'm told.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. It was a good childhood in that respect. I mean, we had always have the fights that you have typically with siblings, but there was always adventures, and we're still very, very close.
That's nice. I'm glad to hear that. Now, one of the things you said, and again, as I'm starting at the bottom, is you said you're involved in, or you're passionate about social justice. So
Correct.
Now how do you go about, or what do you do when it involves social justice?
Well, I mean, that's a very complex term. One of the benefits I had in growing up in Chilliwack is that I became very good friends with a number of the Stolo First Nations, and I didn't know them as Stolo. They were just my friends. And so we always hung out in the forest and played. And I ended up learning a lot about, what their culture was like, what it was like just to be them, and some of the challenges they had to deal with. And I always thought it was terribly unfair. And as such, I kind of, over time, did more reading and research and so on. And in general, I've always wanted to see things improve overall for all of society. I mean, there are challenges for all sorts of things, and it's been something that's been growing over time. So anytime I have an opportunity to speak about things that seem inequitable, or where we're not now, of course, it's getting into environmental concerns.
Right.
So anytime we get into a situation where we have to look at equity and look at, what's really going on and how it's going to affect all of us, we're all really in the same boat. It really makes it more of an imperative, because I have grandchildren now and I've got my children, and we all want a better world. We don't need the conflict. We don't need the challenge with resources. We don't need all of that. And that doesn't make me necessarily far left communist. I was actually a progressive conservative candidate back in the 2000 election. I didn't win, but that's fine. The point of the matter is fair,
right.
And recognition of inequity and doing your best to fix it is really important.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. All right, let's talk about, we'll get into your career a little bit. Okay, so initially you were involved with construction and real estate development industry, is that correct?
Yeah, still involved as a consultant.
Okay, but how did you get started to begin with?
Oh, I've always liked building. I was involved very early on in construction works, and I actually wanted to be an engineer, but I decided to take up economics. And so my background is actually in construction economics, and I've been doing project development and real estate development for the last, over 44 years, right? So it's been one of those, I think my essence is a builder, right? I've always wanted to improve things and build things and do things the right way. So that career has just been my passion. I've been able to follow it and we've built some very interesting projects. I've done about $30 billion in construction in my entire career.
Wow.
Some notable projects like the Vancouver Library Square project. Done a number of other major projects in various provinces. I've worked up in Nunavut and when they became a territory to do projects for them. So it's been a very worthwhile career. I felt it's given me a lot and I've been able to contribute, and I still do. I'm still involved.
Yeah, it seems to me that you're quite involved with a lot of different things.
Yes,
right?
Pretty active.
Because you're vice president of development, manager of construction and development manager, project manager. Like it just goes on and on.
Yeah, I've held all those roles. I've cut back a lot of them. I'm just basically kind of a lead consultant for a cost consultancy firm, but I also do a lot of teaching at the university level.
Okay.
So I do some advanced courses for the University of Alberta on communications and negotiation and on advanced project controls.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a little esoteric, but if you're in the industry, that's really important. And then I do a lot of the builder certification courses at Langara for those that want to maintain their certification as being builders in the province of BC.
Oh, that's fascinating. I like, because I don't know anything about, I mean, I know what construction is, obviously, right? But about maintaining your certifications and all of that. Obviously, I don't know anything about it. I've never been involved in that. But there's other things for you. It's like quality surveyor.
Quantity surveying.
Quantity surveyor. Yeah.
That's fine. Everybody gets that wrong.
What does that mean, though? What is that?
It's a British term. It really means you're a cost engineer.
Oh, okay.
So what I do is not only, I mean, some people count it a bean counter, but not quite that. We'll measure the works that need to be done, but fundamentally we work out the costs. We'll work out life cycle costs, how long a project should last. We'll make estimates as far as the operational cost of a building. We do a lot of value engineering where we'll say, well, if you build this way or that way, the project will either cost less or last longer. It'll have a lower carbon footprint. So we do a lot of analyses on the sustainability of projects. I do social capital analysis, which means that I can work backwards on the type of project that you would build if you're building, say, a hospital. And depending upon what you build and when you build it, will work out to so many lives saved. Those sorts of calculations, they're quite advanced.
Yeah.
And but they do actually, we use them as a form. We give this information to government agencies and they use it to develop policy. And over time, it's improved things. I mean, obviously, we want things to go faster, better. And a lot of us have different ideas. And there are always other political issues that have to be weighed one against the other. But in general, especially in Canada, we do see improvements.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, there was something about project awards. Now, was that involved with? Hold on, now I'm just looking at reading your resume. There was a lot. I didn't memorize everything, so that's why.
No, it's fair enough.
Paper, right? But something about the asphalt testing laboratory.
Yes, very cool project.
Okay.
I was approached. I used to work for the city of Vancouver, and then I took a period of time and ran my own company for a while because I wanted to do work for other municipalities. So I specialized in doing municipal work, especially the really odd jobs that nobody wanted to take on. So I've done a number of them throughout the Lower Mainland. But one of the projects I was approached at was from the engineering department of the city of Vancouver. Down on Kent Street, they had a large piece of land where they were wanting to redevelop into their new central roads services processing plant. So they process their own asphalt there.
Okay.
And they needed to create a laboratory and an office. And for years while I was in the city, I said, frankly, you can build fully sustainable projects by reusing existing materials. You don't have to harvest trees or anything to a very high percentage and do so cost effectively. So they sought me after I left the city and they said, would you be the project manager for this? They gave me a budget to work with, and that was a floating account. So as I found materials, we would design to it and we would have it built. So we built their lab and their office space, which was a fairly large building, all with used materials. I think nearly 90% used materials.
Wow.
And we recycled from all sorts of different projects, brought it back. It came in cheaper than building with brand new. The quality was superior to anything that was new because we were building with the virgin materials. And we did a lot of custom work. All the windows in the building are all custom made on site by using recycled lumber and having recycled glass turned into new sealed units that we would put in. And so that building's lasted very, very well. And it proved the point that you can build in that fashion. It was more of a proof of concept project, and you can build in that fashion so that you can stop really going to such extreme measures and taking materials out of the environment when you've already got these materials ready. Instead of going into a landfill, it goes into the next building.
Right.
And it won 8 awards, and it became a central piece to part of the curriculum for the School of Architecture at UBC as something for the architects to think about. Now, obviously, they won't go to that extent. That was an extraordinarily focused project, but we see elements of the possible reuse and reapplication of existing materials in new projects all the time.
It's a good point. I want to think about it. I ask you about is like sometimes I see or read about different countries where they're reusing whatever it is to build a house, or and I sometimes think, are they more advanced with doing this than we are here in Canada?
They're not more advanced, but I think we have, unfortunately, the tyranny of having too much. So it's so easy to reach out and take something new or something else that's offered to us and forget what's already there. And so if we take, and eventually we're going to be forced to deal with what we have, not what we can get.
Right. Yeah.
So I think these other nations don't have that luxury. And in that respect, you're correct. They maybe are smarter at dealing with it than we are. You can build, there's a wonderful structure on the east shore of Kootenay Lake, which is made out of glass bottles. It's a house that's made out of glass bottles. And it was just the builder at that time had an overstock of glass bottles, and they mortared them in like block. And it's just a beautiful little structure. You can make homes out of tires and rammed earth. People have made homes with hay bales and cob. There's all sorts of different systems that are out there. And as much as it sounds maybe out of the mainstream and not possible, it's actually more readily available to you than what you might think. So just with a little bit of additional thought, it can be really, really valuable. And I have clients today, individuals who come to me and say, well, listen, we want to incorporate some of that into our new project. So I'm always involved with projects where they want to incorporate readily accessible materials to them, reused materials into their projects. And we're always doing something like that. But you have to have the spirit in mind ahead of time to do it. Sometimes we're forced there because we don't have those resources, but eventually we're going to get there. So we have to be ready to start thinking that way.
Yeah, I really like the idea. I think it's also like for an average person, it's just trying to find that those people that know how to work with whatever those products are, right? To, like I would love, if I was to build a home now, say I want it to be totally cost efficient, totally self-sustaining, whatever the words are, so that it had solar panels and I'd have used whatever. Tires, I don't care what it would be, but who would I find? Where would I find that person that knows how to incorporate all of that?
And you know what? They're out there. I mean, certainly I'm always out there, and I have a very practical background to it because I have to get it built. And we've actually built these types of projects. We did a project in Fort McMurray where the buildings were going up. They're 150,000 square foot condominiums.
Okay.
And the buildings are going up in 55 calendar days, which is super fast.
Yeah.
And they were so well built, modular setup, and we worked with the plants to put the materials together in a specific way. And they were so well designed that not only did they go in fast, they were about 2/3 the normal cost to build. And they withstood the fires that went through Fort McMurray extraordinarily well. Everything else around them burned down. Anything that was on the decks burned off, obviously, but the temperature on the inside didn't, because they were so well insulated, the temperature on the inside of the buildings didn't get hotter than a hot summer's day.
Wow.
And there was a raging fire on the outside of the building. None of the roof burned off. They had to put a new membrane roof on, which is nothing.
Okay.
but the building was entirely protected because of the quality that went into it. And that all just came from forethought. And it was actually cheaper to build than if they would have built it the normal industry way. So we need to rethink everything when we're talking about whatever, especially with buildings.
Yeah.
It's so intensive in the use of resources.
I find it so exciting, to know that you're thinking about that, or people think about it. I find that very exciting.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot of fun with it. It's one of those things I keep picking away at all the time. We always find new ways to do things.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now moving on, where are we going to go from here? Now, you talked about teaching at the university, of course. Okay, and for more than 30 years.
Yes.
Really, eh? I mean, I just don't understand how you've done all of these things.
Well,
Overachiever.
I work all day, but I teach in the evenings, and
Right.
especially of late, it's been easier. There's always good things and bad things that come out of things, and as terrible as the pandemic has been,
Yeah.
it's really solidified my ability to do more teaching in a remote sense. So I do a lot of the Zoom connections with regards to teaching these classes, and the universities have really picked up on that. That's likely to expand. It also gets into, especially when we start going through the program on communications and negotiations, and we really delve into the details of what it means to communicate and to have more effective means of connecting with somebody else and learning how to understand where they're coming from, and then using that as a means to get to a mutual agreement on specific factors. So that's been a really big building factor, because all of us come with our own sets of understandings and our own sets of challenges. And the thing that you have to break through when you get into these communication areas is you actually have to take time to work to understand the other person's point of view first.
Right.
And really kind of not so much sympathize, but empathize with where they're at. And then it makes your job that much easier to communicate with them.
Very good. Yeah, that's so cool. Now, so there's also something about the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation.
Yeah. Now, that was an interesting period of time. Way back, I think it was they had that severe economic downturn. I think it was 2008 or something like that. Where a lot of executives were losing their jobs, and the whole industry was kind of sorting itself out. CMHC and also the Business Development Bank of Canada approached me, and we started putting together programs with regards to helping executives find new means and new methods to get back in the industry, doing something, not so much working for somebody else, but developing their own business and following their own passions. So there was an element of business development skills and training that we had to bring into it. But there was a great deal of work done on the motivational and inspirational side. Like, you have to get people out of their rut. Obviously, in difficult times, we get stuck in what we knew, and when we lose it, we grieve it. And everybody carries pain. Yeah. But how do you handle that pain? How do you move forward? How do you build from that pain and gain something from it? So what we did in that process, and it's even valid today, considering how difficult things have been, is how do we move beyond what we've had into something new, learn from it, grow from it, and get something better.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, not everybody's able to think beyond what they know, right?
Yeah. One of the reasons, going back I'm kind of naturally in that way of thinking. The reason that we left Saskatchewan when I was a child was my father was quite abusive. And so we escaped that situation. And it was always a challenge for me when growing up. It took me a while to sort that out. And I was able to take from that challenge, from the pain and everything that comes with that. And I was able to develop what I'm doing today and what interests me today, and just keeping active and busy in everything that I do. So it's possible. It's not easy, but I really think that anybody that, and everybody recognizes they're dealing with these challenges. if you take the opportunity to build with it and work with people who can help you build with it, you can really move into something better.
Right. It's quite interesting, because for me, like with doing my show, they were always in person, right? Until COVID. And so finding Zoom was so fortunate that made it possible to continue with the show. And then it made it possible to talk to people from wherever they were. So it was a nice way for me to continue and a good learning experience. And I value that. And I hope.
Well, and you bring a very valuable, very cherished service to everybody. I think what you're doing is, I'm serious, I'm sincere. I think what you do is you draw from a number of different aspects and points of view and allow those thoughts to be brought forward. And I think people learn from that. I mean, these types of movements are so vital.
Yeah, that's my goal. Like, I want to talk to everybody. I'm so fascinated by everybody's journeys that their lives have taken, so that's one of the things I want to do it. Anyway, back to you. So you're a past board member of, and I don't know what this is, AQSA.
The Alberta Quantity Surveyors Association.
Okay. When people put in acronyms, it's like code work to me. And I don't.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I don't have the code book.
No. Yeah, so I've sat on a number of boards. I was with the Real Estate Institute of Canada for quite some time. I was the provincial chair for a couple of years. So I did that, and of course with the quantity surveyors. And I've been a Rotarian and all sorts of things, anywhere I can help.
Yeah, certainly put your hand everywhere. Kiwanis Club?
Kiwanis, yes, absolutely.
Right? Oh, wait a minute now. Kiwanis Club of Chinatown.
Yes, I was one of the initial members of the Kiwanis Club of Chinatown. My first wife, lovely woman, is of Chinese descent, and I got to know the culture very, very well, and really enjoyed just dealing with the individuals and the people. And one of the things that was brought up, I was familiar with Kiwanis, was there was no Kiwanis Club of Chinatown. There was the Lions Club and others, and I said, let's get something going. So we got one going, and it became very, very successful. Unfortunately, I moved on, I relocated, but it was a great deal of fun putting that together right from scratch.
Awesome. That sounds, well, we have something in common because my son's married. Well, he lives in China, and he's also married to a Chinese young woman. And it's a fascinating culture to begin with.
It is, absolutely.
Now, with all of the things you've done, and you're now living, I believe you're over in Seychelles. Is that correct? And you have these wonderful hobbies. So I'm hoping you'll have time to enjoy some of them, like gardening and hiking and canoeing. Are you able to get out there?
Well, and this is a perfect spot for all of that. Gardening, of course. If ever you look at some of my Facebook pictures, all those garden shots are my garden.
Nice.
And one of the things I never thought I was any good at was gardening, but the pandemic has proved that I have a skill set.
Bringing out all kinds of talents, right?
It is. It's one of those things. Well, I can't travel. What am I going to do? But I have been on the water canoeing and kayaking. And in fact, I've got to, this summer, I've got to refit the expedition canoe I've got. But I've got a whitewater canoe and an expedition canoe. And I've got to refit the expedition canoe because it's a bit old. But it's had wonderful travels. And up here, we have the Powell Lake Canoe Circuit, which is just an absolutely fantastic trip. And it's really easy. So it's one of the trips that I do enjoy. And of course, with all the ocean around us and the inlet, kayaking is a lot of fun. And then hiking. There are numerous trails in this area. And some can be quite challenging, but most of them are actually pretty well suited for somebody of my age.
Very good. That's awesome. Well, we're just about out of time. But I just want to ask one thing now. If somebody wants to contact you to ask about if they want something built that's new and innovative or using reused products, could they do that? Are they free to do that? Absolutely.
So even if they're just looking at their house or looking at some kind of project and want some advice, I have people that they talk to me for all sorts of issues. I have no problem with that at all. But certainly if they're looking at something innovative and they really want to do something, I'm happy to provide advice and point them in the right direction, see wherever I can help.
So should they contact you on Facebook? Is that how you would like it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Facebook under Ken King. You should find me quite easily.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just hang on. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. Okay.
All right.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed meeting Ken King and all of the things that he's been involved with and still is involved with. I think it's awesome. And hope you keep watching the show. And until then, everybody, peace out.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.